Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. A retired North Vancouver elementary school teacher charged with multiple sex crimes. Plus, BC doctors prepare for a nationwide shortage of an important pill.
There is that time limit that you have to take into consideration.
Why those who provide abortions are stockpiling. And reaching the tipping point.
People are very fatigued with tipping.
People in this province say they're being asked to tip more often than any other place in Canada, what many are offering as a solution instead.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Anita Bathe. We begin tonight in North Vancouver, where charges have been laid against a former elementary school teacher. A warning, details in this story may be disturbing. Now, he's accused of several counts of sexual assault against students. The CBC's Dan Burrett joins us live with more on this. Dan?
Anita, North Vancouver RCMP today announced 83-year-old Brian Moore has been charged with 12 counts of sexual offenses, including assault and sexual touching of a person under 14. Moore taught at Upper Lynn Valley Elementary between 1970 and 1982. The RCMP says Moore is alleged to have committed one of these offenses in 2007 after his tenure as a teacher. Last summer, police announced they had arrested the former teacher for indecent assault against students in the 70s and 80s and asked potential victims to contact them. They did.
We understand that this news may be upsetting for some members of the community and especially for the victims. We would like to thank those that came forward to provide statements. Without their courage, we would not be in the position that we are in today.
The RCMP adds its Victim Services Unit is available 24/7 for people who want help at 604-969-7540.
Dan, we're also hearing from an alleged victim in the case today. What is he saying?
Yes, Dennis Cooper. He is a former student of Brian Moore's. Last August, Cooper filed a civil claim alleging Moore groomed and sexually assaulted him and others over the course of several field trips throughout their grade 6 year. Now, none of the criminal nor civil allegations have been proven yet in court. Cooper, who's now 56, says this has been a long wait.
For many of the guys, they've carried this secret with them for most of their adult lives, and as difficult as it was for them to bring their stories forward, it's even more difficult to see almost nothing done about it. So this is a very important day.
Cooper says he hopes this will encourage other people to share their stories, as difficult as that can be. Anita?
Dan Burrett live for us tonight. Thank you. Well, doctors in BC are worried about a shortage of abortion pills that's expected to hit Canada next week. This is according to the country's only supplier. Marina von Stackelberg is looking at the consequences this could have on women, often in a time-sensitive situation.
So this is mifenymiso.
Also known as the abortion pill, doctors like Renee Hall can prescribe it up to 10 weeks into pregnancy. Further along, a surgical abortion is required.
There is that time limit that you have to take into consideration.
When the last shortage happened in December, Dr. Hall says some patients had to have a surgical abortion instead.
That was really unfortunate circumstance for those patients. They really wanted to get this done by medication. They did not want to end up in surgery.
This latest abortion pill shortage is expected to last 2 weeks. Line Pharma, the company that makes it, blames a short supply of the active ingredient used in the drug. That has led to manufacturing and delivery delays. Clinics across the country have stockpiled what doses they have.
We know that some pharmacies have a limited stock of mifenymiso available, but not a really high stock. So we're scared that some people might not have access to the products.
During the last shortage, some pharmacies in rural and remote areas ran out.
It expires pretty quickly, so most pharmacies keep like 1 or 2 boxes.
The abortion pill has greatly opened up access since it became available in 2017. Instead of having to travel to a clinic or hospital for a surgery, a family doctor can prescribe it, and it can be taken at home.
The scope of access is just so significantly diminished when you take medication abortion out of the picture.
Line Pharma supplies Canada with between 50 and 80,000 doses of the abortion pill every year. The company says the hormone used in the pill is still a niche product. Not many places manufacture it, making it difficult to source. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
More than 100 nurses at one Lower Mainland hospital are calling for better working conditions. They rallied today outside the Eagle Ridge Hospital in Port Moody. They say the hospital has had a $27 million renovation, but not nearly enough has been done to deal with a drastic nursing shortage. The nurses say the emergency room often runs at 115% capacity, and nurses without ER training are being forced to fill empty positions.
Health authorities and the government need to figure out a way to not only recruit nurses, but to keep the nurses that we have in the system. And currently the working conditions are so poor that nurses are leaving. We're losing new grads, we're losing nurses that are nearing retirement age that would happily work another 2 or 5 years that are saying we just can't do it. And we're also losing mid-career nurses. There's a general labor shortage out there. Nurses have lots of opportunities. We are highly skilled, educated professionals that are in demand around the globe. And BC needs to spend some time figuring out how they're going to keep the nurses they already have.
The nurses say the government does not appear to have a plan to hire its targeted 26,000 nurses by 2031, and that the province needs to present tangible solutions around addressing the nurse and healthcare worker shortage. The Victoria Police Department is notifying people of a privacy breach after a police officer's notebook went missing. It happened in December, but the department only found out about it this month. They say the contents of the notebook have been copied and the information has allegedly been used in crimes around Saanich. The notebook contains about 60 names and 50 addresses within Victoria, Esquimalt, Saanich, and the West Shore. The names were related to police action or were under investigation. They say there is no concern about additional criminal activity. Ex-BC Liberal MLA John Rustad is crossing the floor to join the BC Conservatives.
I really believe that as in politics, MLAs and people running for office need to stand on principles. They need to be able to express their voice, supporting their riding. They shouldn't just be there parroting a party line, and which is what we've seen both from the BC Liberals and the NDP.
Rustad was first elected to the legislature as a member of the BC Liberal Party, but in August, he was tossed from the Liberal caucus after an online post casting doubt on the science behind climate change.
And he started changing his position on that and tweeting out things that were in denial of climate change's reality. I said to John, if you've changed your position, that's fine. You can have that. We can have that debate and discuss that in caucus, as we're always willing to do, but you're not going to be out there publicly doing that. And if you can't find the discipline to continue supporting the position we've always had as a party, you're not going to be part of this party. And when he hemmed and hawed and said he wasn't sure if he could live with that, I fired him from caucus.
Rustad has been sitting as an independent. Prior to today, the BC Conservatives haven't held a seat in the legislature since 1975. Well, the BC Coroner Service is recommending a full inquest into the deaths of 3 Calgary Railroad workers killed in a derailment in 2019. Danielle Waldenberger-Bulmer, Andrew Dockrell, and Dylan Paradis died after the brakes on the train they were on failed near Field, BC. Last year, the Transportation Safety Board released the findings of its 3-year investigation. It found that Canadian Pacific had previously filed reports on dangerous brake issues on Field Hill. A lawyer for 2 of the victims' families says the inquest would be historical. Well, Tesla is being forced to recall nearly 380,000 vehicles in Canada and the U.S. over a software flaw that raises the risk of a crash. More than 20,000 cars in Canada are affected. Vehicles equipped with the full self-driving software failed to stop at stop signs. That's according to U.S. regulators. They drove straight through intersections while in a lane meant for turning only. It's the latest blow to Tesla's driver assist software. A new survey shows British Columbians are feeling the pinch when it comes to tipping, saying they're being asked to tip more money more often than anywhere else in the country. Now, the survey conducted by the Angus Reid Institute found nationwide Canadians are being asked to tip more, but the researchers note this phenomenon has played out in different provinces, so with 74% of BC respondents saying they've noticed an uptick in the number of times they're being prompted to tip while out. Compare that with Atlantic Canada, where only 59% reported a difference. More than half of Canadians would prefer an end to tipping and a higher base wage for service workers instead.
And when you measure what they're noticing and feeling against the backdrop of a well-documented, long, ongoing cost of living crisis, so not only does the cost of the service that you're paying for increase and take more out of your wallet, that now the tipping aspect of it is really pushing some people over the tipping point.
More than 40% of those surveyed say the extra cost of tipping is keeping them from going out, with many of those responses coming from Canadians under the age of 55. A longtime Metro Vancouver Music Festival will be returning to Deer Lake Park this summer. And for the first time ever, you can actually get into the Burnaby's Blues and Roots Festival for free.
Exposing people to this type of entertainment and these artists is really important, so that the city of Burnaby is in the financial position to be able to deliver events like this to our residents and visitors without any additional cost to taxpayers.
The hope is by removing ticket fees for Burnaby's Blues and Roots Festival, more people will have the chance to take in local and international music acts. It's welcome news to Vancouver musicians. Scrapping admission costs could mean more exposure for new artists, many of whom are struggling to recover from the pandemic. Organizers say the festival lineup will be announced in the spring. Well, new money is on its way to help struggling festivals, fairs, and events here in BC. And as the CBC's Zara Premji explains, for some organizers, they say this could be their lifeline.
The sound of silence interrupted. Weeks after the Vancouver Folk Music Festival warned it wouldn't be able to move forward, it seems the show could go on.
Maybe we can now put on an event for 2023. It's not the complete answer, but it certainly gives us a great deal of hope.
The province says it will be putting forward $30 million in one-time grants to eligible events that apply.
This support will help eligible events like sporting events, community celebrations, agricultural fairs, rodeos, exhibitions, and music festivals.
Last month, FolkFest said its 43-year event would be coming to a halt, citing rising costs and being crushed by post-pandemic bills as the culprits.
I'm flabbergasted in a way.
Organizers say they'll try everything in their power to revive the 2023 edition despite hurdles.
It's not confirmed, and we don't have a place. We don't even have one act booked. We don't even have an artistic, we have nothing. But we have a bit of time and we have commitment.
Other events organizers are also applauding the move. Squamish Consolation Festival organizers saying, "We were getting very close to the point of being resigned to having to hold off until 2024. It's coming at the very last minute for us. Optimistically, I feel like we can probably do something at this point." The temporary nature of the funds, though, means they could be back to trying to scrape by the following year.
We're hoping it's a bridge to a place where fairs, festival, and events have a plan that incorporates all of these new challenges that are before us.
The funding can cover as much as 20% of an event's total budget, up to a maximum of $250,000. Applications will be open from now until March 3rd, and events between April 1st of this year and December 31st of next year are eligible. Zara Premji, CBC News, Vancouver.
So are Vancouver's aspirations to be the greenest city in North America a thing of the past? City Council had a number of climate-related topics on the agenda yesterday. We told you about some of them. They didn't quite go how they might have gone under previous mayors Gregor Robertson or Kennedy Stewart's reign. Watching it all unfold, of course, is Municipal Affairs reporter Justin McElroy. He joins us live. So, Justin, take us through what exactly has happened.
Yeah, there were a few things, one of which that we've talked about over the last couple of days. The 25-cent cup fee that the city put in that went in place at the beginning of last year has been controversial. There was a vote to try and get rid of it in the middle of last year. It went down to defeat 6-5, but there was an election in between then and now. It's a new ABC majority, and they put forward a motion calling to get rid of the fee, saying that there wasn't enough evidence that it was working. But I was struck by the words of the councillor that put forward the motion, Rebecca Bly, and how she contrasted what Vancouver is doing, being the only place in North America with this fee, and whether it was truly effective.
Vancouver, all on its own, in a massive country, is thinking that they're winning the climate war because they've got a 25-cent cup fee is insanity. It's actually insanity. So we have to really wheel this back in and recognize that we've supported a lot of policy around this table. This one does not make any sense.
Now, there was a time that Vancouver Council saying we're the only ones doing something on climate initiatives in North America, and going above what the provincial and federal government were doing is something that would probably pass in council. Under this one, not so much, slightly different priorities. And again, they just didn't see the evidence in their mind that it was working.
Okay, so that's just one decision, but would some still call Vancouver a climate leader?
Well, it depends on what you look at. And another thing that happened at council yesterday was that they got a report back on what their climate initiatives have done to date. And take a look at this chart that they put forward, showing that Vancouver's greenhouse emissions have only gone down by 10% in the last 14 years. That's actually less by percentage than the city of Toronto. Staff said that there was a heck of a lot more that needed to be done in order to get to their target of 50% reduction by 2030. It's still unclear whether council will go towards all of the proposals that staff say would need to happen there, or they'll try something else. In addition, one thing that came to council yesterday was a report done by a volunteer committee, a climate action charter with more suggestions. Council decided rather to accept the report and all of the recommendations in it for staff, simply to table it, say thank you for doing that job, and we'll see what happens next. Certainly different priorities with this city council and a different way of looking at climate initiatives than under Greg Robertson and Kennedy Stewart might have been the case.
No kidding. Justin McElroy, live tonight. Thank you. Well, Canada is sending a team to race in the first ever women's regatta at the America's Cup. The sailing squad will be led by a Vancouver woman who is ranked second in the world. As Jessica Chung explains, it's a big deal for women in sports.
The America's Cup match underway.
For the first time in more than a century, the America's Cup will include a women's regatta.
Isabella Berthold.
And Vancouver's very own Isabella Berthold will be leading the charge.
In October 2024, history will be made. The America's Cup is the pinnacle of the sport of sailing, and for the first time in its history, the women will compete for our very own trophy. This is a monumental step for women in sport, women in the sport of sailing, and women in general.
The 32-year-old who is ranked second in the world got her start sailing in English Bay. Now Berthold will lead a team of 4 at the event in Spain next year.
Growing up, I was often 1 or 2 girls on the junior race team here at Royal Van. There weren't that many women actively sailing, but I was very fortunate to have incredible female role models around me still, who sort of paved the way and said never take no for an answer and keep pushing forward.
The America's Cup has been a men's-only competition for 137 years. Now up to 12 women's teams will be competing for their own trophy. Hopes are high that more diversity in the sport will spark interest for the next generation.
The team we're setting up for the long haul. It's way beyond. The first goal is Barcelona in 2024, but we're not setting it up just as a 2-year project. The aim is to get Canada back on the main stage and to stay there for the long term.
On the competition side, I want more girls coming up and saying, I can sail this boat better than you can. And for that, they need role models, they need people to look up to. And so, yeah, it means the world.
The rest of the team have yet to be chosen, but Isabella Berthold will be leading them in the competition. They will be heading to Barcelona, Spain in October of 2024. Jessica Chung, CBC News, Vancouver.
This is crazy. 137 years and no women's event?
Yes, it is. It is totally wild that this is just happening now, and I am going to be cheering her on big time. It's a really fun sport to watch. Have you ever sort of watched the racing of the sailboats?
I haven't, so I'm definitely going to have to now, but you have seen it?
Yes, and we need a viewing party, I think, Anita, for when they do head to Barcelona. It's so exciting. My uncle's really into sailing, so I've held the spinnaker at the back. If anyone knows what that means, I barely know what that means.
It sounds cool.
Yes, it's a really tough sport. So yeah, super cool, long overdue, and I'll put that on my calendar for our viewing date. Something I'm viewing tonight is the snow that is getting down to parts of Metro Vancouver. We've been seeing it on and off, mainly down around 200 meters, but parts of the Malahat as we head into Highway 4 on the island. We've been seeing it up towards Squamish, the North Shore, Burnaby, just that wet snow mix going back and forth. And as temperatures drop tonight, there is a chance we may see trace amounts of snow at that 200-meter mark through the overnight and into tomorrow morning as sort of this elongated area of low tracks towards the southeast. We do get a bit of a break tomorrow afternoon, afternoon, but there is still a risk of wet snow tomorrow morning. Here's tonight, and just keep your eye on the purple as that sort of sinks down briefly across Metro Vancouver. There's 8 a.m. before it lifts. So maybe leave a little extra time if you're headed out tomorrow morning, Anita, but I've got more winter to talk about coming up.
Sounds good. Talk to you soon. Well, Canada's women's soccer team lost their opening match of the She Believes Cup this afternoon. A few days ago, it wasn't clear they would even take the field, though plans for a strike were quashed by threatened legal action. As Lindsay Duncombe shows us, the team still found a way to make a point.
Canada's national women's team taking to the pitch in purple, a symbol of equality, their latest protest in an ongoing and increasingly ugly fight to be treated and paid the same as the men, a battle their American opponents know well.
They've also been in this fight as well, and we all know that at times it's bigger than when we step on the pitch.
We're with them 100%. We obviously know, exactly what they're going through, how difficult that is.
The World Cup champion Americans achieved equal pay after a lawsuit last year. The Canadian conflict has unique complications. Back in 2018, Canada Soccer contracted out broadcast deals and sponsorships to Canadian Soccer Business, a private company linked to a men's professional league.
In 2018, when we signed this deal, nobody else was coming to the party. We were the only company, and at that time we took an enormous risk.
The CEO says given the conflict, it's willing to reconsider the terms of that agreement.
We want them to get into a position where the only thing they're thinking about when they walk on the field is winning.
In the middle of the turmoil, there are reports Canada's head coach, who led the team to an Olympic championship, is entertaining other offers.
Post-gold medal, there's been regular opportunities put in front of me, but I think that the biggest thing is, I'm committed to this group.
Soccer watchers see the whole mess as part of a larger pattern of mismanagement.
There has been a long tail of disappointment with Canada Soccer over the last year plus. In some of their decisions and actions.
Canada Soccer didn't comment on the labor dispute today. Its press release all about the game, an attempt at soccer as usual when it's clearly anything but. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Vancouver.
The federal government is taking steps to prevent wrongful convictions in this country. We'll have details about what that involves coming up. Thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream tonight. Every winter, water pipes in some people's homes will freeze. In some cases, it can result in burst pipes, which could lead to indoor flooding. Our team in Edmonton spoke to an expert who revealed the best way to handle and prevent frozen pipes in your home.
Hi, I'm Sean. I'm here to look at some frozen pipes and see what we can do to prevent them. The most common cause of a frozen pipe in the house is usually in the transitioning times from fall to winter and from winter to spring, where people will leave the hoses on their hose bibs outside and it'll trap the water inside the hose bib and that'll freeze. People kind of get caught off guard if they've done renovations and they cover something up in the summertime, and then in the winter time that area isn't properly insulated, then you don't have any warm air coming from the house. So you'll have a dead space that freezes, and if you have piping in there, it could freeze and burst. The easiest pipe to freeze and burst would be a copper line. It doesn't happen very often with plastic because it'll expand when it freezes, but copper won't expand when it freezes. The first thing you should do is turn off your water. You never want to close a valve too fast, because if you do it too fast, you could actually split the piping before the valve and then you'll have a bigger problem. So it's easy just to do it slowly. When it goes from fall to winter, make sure you check your outside hose bibs, make sure there's no hoses connected before it freezes. On the inside of your house, you can inspect yourself and kind of look and predict where areas might be affected by the cold, and then try to insulate your piping from the outside. I would say anytime that you would notice water where it shouldn't be, or like if you have a burst pipe, or if you have a fixture that's all of a sudden not working, it's really cold outside and a sink all of a sudden stops, that usually suggests that the line is frozen somewhere inside your house, and it would prompt a call to a plumber.
For more than 30 years, the federal government has faced calls to address an issue with its justice system. Those wrongfully convicted of crimes had to apply for the justice minister to review their cases. That, of course, took time and resources unavailable to a lot of people, especially those from Indigenous or Black communities. As Ashley Burke reports, a new bill was introduced today aimed at making reviews quicker and more accessible and independent.
He was the victim of one of the most blatant injustices in Canadian judicial history.
How's it feel, David? Pretty good to be out forever, right?
David Milgard spent 23 years in prison for a rape and murder he didn't commit.
My sister and I got beaten up going home from school because our brother's a murderer. It was a horrible, horrible life.
Today, Milgard's sister joined the justice minister as he announced a bill named after her late brother and mother who fought for his freedom all those years.
When I met David in 2019, I committed to him personally that I would work to make the system better.
The new bill would create a commission to independently investigate cases of possible wrongful convictions, rather than applying to the Minister of Justice's office for a review.
Nobody wanted to really do anything to support getting David's application through. We were turned down a multitude of times by the minister's office.
The commission would have 7 dedicated commissioners tasked with gathering evidence, investigating, and deciding if cases should be sent back to the justice system.
If this commission had existed back in the early 1970s, it can safely be said it would have saved David Milgard 2 decades, at least 2 decades of those 23 years that he spent in prison.
Milgard was released from prison in 1992, but it took several more years before he was exonerated by DNA evidence. Susan Milgard says she hopes the bill passes and may help others avoid the same pain she endured.
It's like a huge piece of your heart is missing every day, and it still is, because that hole hasn't healed for me, even though David's out. Because then after he got out, what did he do? For the next 23 years, he kept on fighting. I just wanted my brother back.
Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
For insight on what this means and the quest for justice, I'm joined by Tamara Levy. She's the director of the Innocence Project at UBC's Peter Allard School of Law. Tamara, we know this new legislation is meant to make the process of, whether overturning a conviction a lot quicker, ideally more accessible to BIPOC individuals. How confident are you that this is going to help?
I think it will depend a lot on how the commission creates its policies and procedures. I'm encouraged by what I heard today and by reading the new legislation. There will be, it seems, a focus on a proactive approach and a systemic addressing some systemic issues. So that is very encouraging. And hopefully the commission will have staff in place that can do outreach into BIPOC communities and other underserved communities that we're seeing the overturning of wrongful convictions are just not reaching.
Other countries have already done this. The UK is among them. Do you know what the impact has been there or in other places?
It depends which jurisdiction you're looking to. The CCRC, the Criminal Case Review Commission in the UK, has been in operation since 1997, I believe, and they have sent over 800 cases back to courts of appeal. They also look at sentences. A jurisdiction like New Zealand just started a commission in 2020, and the numbers just aren't out yet. But I understand they've been inundated with applications, which hopefully means they're reaching a wider population.
So besides Milgard, what other specific cases do you think that this could have actually helped had this been different before?
It could have honestly helped any of the cases that have gone through the 696 process. Trescott is a high profile one that comes to mind, but any of those cases, now that we have, we're going to have hopefully dedicated decision makers that are full-time commissioners that will be looking at these cases, decisions can be made much more quickly than has been the case in the past, with the ministers of justice having so many other responsibilities, not being able to get to the cases in time.
Tamara, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
Well, Marilyn Monroe would have you believe diamonds are a girl's best friend, but is that friend a phony? After the break, our marketplace investigators explain why diamonds bought from popular retailers don't always match their rating card.
Doesn't it make you feel like you're in downtown New York, you know, moving this stuff? The Garment District, that's right. But in fact, we're in downtown Vancouver, setting up the CBC's Love Booth. How'd you ever come up with this idea of the Love Booth, Stan?
Oh, it just came to me in my sleep, Bob.
Really? Good.
That's right.
Okay, well listen, I'm sure it's gonna get some people.
I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, now all we have to do is wait for some customers. And I think they're going to come because, you know, lovely day, Friday. Love is in the air, so here's our Love Booth, right here.
Okay, what have you had before? What have you had before? Good ones?
You were the very first customer.
Oh, great.
I love my mama, same as I love God.
Come on in. Stand by the booth, give a message. I think they're shy today. I don't understand it, you know? I mean, you could trumpet it from the rooftops or something like that. Here you go, she's got a rose. She's got a rose. Come on in here. This is your day.
My mom's best.
Thanks, guys. I'm not sure, you know? Maybe because it's not really Valentine's Day, people's hearts just aren't bursting with love the way mine is at this very moment. Well, Stan, didn't work all that well so far. So what we're going to do is we're going to put Al in the booth.
All right.
And have the people come in. This is a love booth, you know. They have to come out.
Sure.
Okay. So Al, step in the booth. Okay. Did you do that? How's that? I think we're going to have more success this way now.
Yeah, this makes all the difference in the world.
That's right. It's a great idea, Stan.
Yeah.
This is the love booth.
Oh,
You
said
get to give us a Valentine's Day message. Just say it right into the camera.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, into the camera. Dear me.
Hi, I'd like to send my love to my mother and father in Victoria and my brother on Main Island. I love you.
Love you.
Yeah.
To my lovely wife, Lauren, I love you very much.
No, yeah. Even Gordon Wilson, even Gordon Wilson passes by.
I can't. To you, Bob.
I can't believe that Gordon Wilson would pass us by like that.
Okay, got a poem.
A poem?
Yes.
Look into the camera and read it.
I shall recite. This is for Andy, whose lips taste like candy, whose fire red hair makes me want to declare that my love is endless and beyond compare.
Well, I think it's been a pretty good day overall, the first edition of the CBC Love Booth. And I just want to say, honey, I love you. I can't believe that Gordon Wilson would go by like that.
You can do it.
Well, when you buy a diamond, you may not be getting what you're paying for. A marketplace investigation has found that some retailers are making misleading claims. Rosa Marcatelli shows us why customers may want to question if they're actually getting the real deal on diamonds.
We're undercover at jewelry stores Ben Moss, Michael Hill, and Peoples to find out what consumers are told when they lay down all that money for a diamond ring. The pitches include information about what a great investment diamonds are.
So if I were to buy this, the value would just go up. Absolutely.
That's not true, according to this veteran jewelry appraiser.
It's a sales pitch the same as any other type of sales pitch. All they want to say is, yes, this is good value.
So what about the 4 C's? Cut, color, clarity, and carat weight. The salespeople tell us we can trust what we're sold.
It has all the specifications here, the shape, the weight, the clarity, the color.
At each store, we're told the 4 C's are backed by a grading report. So we tested them, buying similar diamonds from each retailer, then sending them to a top lab for regrading. The result? None of the reports matched up.
So this is an eye color I1.
Grading diamonds is subjective, so differences in the reports can happen. In the case of our diamonds, the grading on the Michael Hill one was close, increasing the value slightly by $130. But our test found a drop in quality for the Ben Moss and Peoples diamonds. Both lost nearly $1,000 in value, based on the reports we got.
So people could be buying a diamond and not actually getting what they think they're paying for?
All the time.
Tom Hart speaks for the company that owns Ben Moss.
I feel very confident in our grading. I think anybody shopping at Ben Moss should be 100% convinced that they are getting fair value and getting what we tell them it is.
All 3 companies say the labs they use to grade diamonds are recognized and reliable. Little reassurance for this young couple who spent a lot of money on an engagement ring.
How would you guys feel? You're paying a certain amount and you're expecting something, and so if you find out that it's like not what you're being told, then yeah, it would be disappointing.
The advice for consumers? Get your ring independently appraised right after you buy it. You can usually return it if you're not satisfied. Rosa Marcatelli, CBC News, Toronto.
Lawmakers in Quebec are pushing the boundaries of medical assistance in dying, tabling legislation that would allow people to ask for it before they were incapacitated by an incurable disease. As Alison Northcott explains, if passed, it again puts Quebec at the forefront of the fight.
Sandra de Montigny remembers seeing her father deteriorate from Alzheimer's before her eyes. At just 43, she's been diagnosed with the same disease and fears what's to come.
It's hard because you know that you will just lose and lose and lose all the things you are able to do.
Quebec's bill would allow people like de Montigny diagnosed with a serious, incurable illness to give advance consent to end their lives with medical aid in dying or MAID, once they've lost the capacity to make decisions and their suffering is unbearable.
It's been a long time that I've been waiting for that, and I'm not alone.
The Quebec government was the first in Canada to introduce MAID legislation, and if these changes pass, it will be the first to offer advance consent, too.
This is a long-awaited bill. I will put all my heart into it until it's adopted.
It is a bit of an ethical challenge because
Dr. Samir Sinha treats patients with dementia and says advance consent would bring some patients and families peace of mind.
There has been a growing sense that this would be a humane option for people who would want it, but with having some additional safeguards in place to make sure that someone can verify the sufferings.
But others say advance consent crosses an ethical line.
At the end of the day, you'll have a team that will inject someone who is not aware that she or he will be about to die. And that is a huge issue.
The bill would also open up medical aid in dying to people with serious, incurable neuromotor disabilities and force palliative care homes to offer MAID to those who qualify and want it.
I don't have a lot of time in front of me.
De Montigny hopes all the political parties work together to pass the legislation before it's too late for her.
We have breaking news from southeastern BC. An avalanche has claimed 2 more lives. Avalanche Canada says 5 snowboarders and 1 skier were caught in the slide outside a ski boundary area near Golden today. 3 people were buried and 2 were killed. Several other people were caught in the slide but have survived. The agency says the group did trigger the slide. It's the latest deadly avalanche in BC this season. Forecasters have continuously warned the snowpack is extremely volatile. In fact, it's the most dangerous it's been in decades. This brings BC's avalanche death toll this season to 9. Well, a move by the federal government aimed at cooling Canada's housing market is prompting a warning from south of the border. And it's Katie Simpson tells us Canadians who own property in the U.S. could be asked to pay up.
The northeastern shore of Lake Erie, as calming as it may be, is now a flashpoint in a new cross-border dispute, pitting Americans who own cottages in Canada against the Canadian government, sparking threats of retaliation against hundreds of thousands of Canadians who own property in the U.S.
If we need to use that as leverage, I have to fight for my people.
The fight centers around Canada's new underused housing tax. Every year, foreign property owners must now pay a 1% tax on the value of homes considered underused or vacant. It's meant to stop foreign investors from parking money in big city residential property that sits vacant. While it includes specific exemptions to shield seasonal property owners, not all vacation communities are covered, including parts of southern Ontario near the Canada-US border. If the exemptions are not expanded, one congressman says he'll push the Biden administration to retaliate.
We will explore the possibility of doing an in-kind policy as it relates to Canadian citizens who own property in the United States.
American owners say the rules are confusing and unfair. The tax on this cottage, owned by one family for more than 80 years, will be around $10,000.
I feel like they want us to leave, and it's a sad feeling. And I know I'm not alone in feeling that.
While there is an understanding Canada's housing crisis needs to be addressed, experts question the value of this specific program.
We've done something complicated with a bunch of little nits that are abrasive to our best trading partner. Like, why would you do that?
Congressman Higgins is in contact with top players in the Biden administration to push the White House to make this a priority for the president's trip to Canada next month. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
Well, next week marks 1 year since the war in Ukraine began. Today, Canadian Foreign Minister Mélanie Joly was in the Ukrainian capital to express continued support.
We've been a steadfast supporter. We're all in. And Canadian knows that this is the right thing to do.
She visited a demining center outside the capital where volunteers are being trained in an underappreciated task of mine clearing. Joly announced an additional $7 million to ramp up training and equipment to clear munitions and booby traps left over in recently liberated areas. Up to 30% of the country is contaminated by unexploded munitions. Well, a TikTok toddler in Quesnel has become an internet sensation for his work ethic. Meet the small town boss baby next.
Traveling with Parasport tells you a lot about how folks view disabled people. When I was in Minneapolis with the Canadian junior wheelchair basketball team, somebody asked me if I was on a Make-A-Wish trip. I said no, but that guy over there has had one. In Toronto, I was met with, wow, there sure are a lot of you people here today. And in Saskatoon, staff got my wheelchair stuck in the baggage scanner and a whole bunch of alarms went off. On this trip, lots of people were calling me a hero. Not because I was representing my country and not because I was a half-decent athlete, but because I dared to get out of bed in the morning and go fly somewhere. Activist and artist Stella Young called this habit of putting disabled people on a pedestal inspiration porn.
And when I was 15, a member of my local community approached my parents and wanted to nominate me for a Community Achievement Award. And my parents said, that's really nice, but there's kind of one glaring problem with that. she hasn't actually achieved anything.
Disabled people are often shoved into one of two categories. The super crip, a person who is assumed to have overcome their disability to accomplish great things, or the tragic, pitiable cripple, whose life is defined by how their disability has held them back. Wider society leaves us with little middle ground. We are not trusted with our own stories. We are often talked about or around, rather than being given the stage to speak our truth. There is endless media coverage that says we are overcoming or confined, a champion or a victim. What we don't have is the privilege of being boring. Our society believes that to live a wonderfully average disabled life is impossible. We're also tired of being first. Disabled people are breaking down barriers that never should have existed in the first place. And we're challenging perceptions that are still so damn persistent. Being boring is a difficult sell, but stereotypes are harmful. Be mindful of the messages you're consuming when it comes to disabled people. Ask them, ask me what I bring to the world, rather than what you assume I'm struggling with. Call us heroes or zeros for the right reasons, and start to see us as more than caricatures.
Land Back is a CBC original podcast where we uncover land theft in Canada and look at how Indigenous people are taking it all back. Land Back is out now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
A small-town baby has gone viral on TikTok for his work ethic. In the video, adorable 15-month-old Thomas Pelletier stacks water jugs at his family's water utility company, Caribou Water.
I mean, I have 3 teenagers and just trying to get everyone motivated, and he's just doing his thing, and it's pretty awesome.
Mom Tamara Pelletier posted the video last Friday of her youngest helping out. Since then, the video has amassed more than 34 million views on TikTok. It even caught the attention of America's Got Talent host Howie Mandel.
People complain about child labor, and they think it's happening in other nations, but it's happening right here in America.
Mandel's tongue-in-cheek review of the video was a shock to Tamara, who at first wasn't sure if he was kidding. She wants to assure Mandel and all viewers that Thomas loves helping out, and there is nothing bad that's happening. Meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe is here now. We've just learned that 2 more people have died in an avalanche in BC. That brings the total now to 9. Joe, we've been warned about these conditions all season. What are we seeing right now?
Yeah, some of the worst avalanche conditions we've seen this season in over a decade due to deep, weak layers buried in the snow. And we just keep getting these systems adding weak layers. This is a look at the snowfall forecast, the accumulations through to next Monday. You can see the darker blues and the purples over 100 centimeters for areas including near Golden. Avalanche conditions right now for the southeast considerable because of those buried weak layers. So the risk will continue through the long weekend, especially with a lot of people hoping to get out. Definitely check BC Avalanche because of all of these buried weak layers. And as I take you through the forecast, notice we have several systems that hit that northeast coast, spread the snow across the north, and then that snow tracks down towards the southeast. We started the season off very cold, then it was very mild, and now we're getting this rapid storm succession, which has led to such increased risk. Through to Sunday, we've got that next system sliding in, and then Monday, one more. So I count 3 systems for the south coast. Most of this is translating to showers for Metro Vancouver. That being said, right now, some good snow happening at SFU. The snow clearing crews are out as snow begins to accumulate. Tomorrow, we'll see that snow track over to the interior Kelowna. Light snow all day for you in the Okanagan. Same story up towards the Shuswap. I think Cranbrook, you'll see a dry day before those flurries move in the afternoon. Prince George, 1 for you, and Prince Rupert starting the day off with showers before ramping up to rain in the afternoon. So as I mentioned earlier, slight risk of seeing some accumulating wet snow for higher elevations in Metro Vancouver tomorrow morning. There's a break in the clouds for the afternoon. It's not going to be an all-day break. Unfortunately, that window is closing, but I'm still hopeful for some sun on Friday. Showers on Saturday and Sunday. Not a washout weekend, but it will be overcast. Temperatures just below that seasonal mark. Looks like we get a little system Monday morning that will bring some heavier rain, and that's the trigger that will bring down the Arctic air that will be in place through most of next week. Look at these overnight lows as we head out to Wednesday and Thursday. With a wind chill, this could be approaching dangerously cold levels, especially for our vulnerable communities. So we'll be watching for some cold weather alerts. At this point, Anita, skies are clear with that cold air, but as you know, it'll only take one little rogue Pacific system to bring the snow, so I'll keep my eye on that.
Yeah, no kidding. We'll be checking in with you for sure. Thanks, Jo.
You're welcome.
Well, Canada's Navy is being sent to help with the crisis in Haiti. Prime Minister Trudeau met with Caribbean leaders today to discuss how Canada could assist. Haiti has been descending into chaos since its president was assassinated in 2021. David Thurton is in the Bahamas.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says Canada is working to find a solution to the security, humanitarian and political crisis in Haiti. But he stopped short of supporting the deployment of a Caribbean-led security force. Trudeau began the day with a one-on-one with Haiti's de facto prime minister. Describing it as a constructive conversation, afterwards Trudeau said Canada would provide millions in humanitarian aid, some of it going to help with the explosion of Haitian migrants showing up on neighboring borders.
The toll of human suffering in Haiti weighs heavily on me.
Likely weighing on Trudeau how Canada could support Jamaica and the Bahamas willing to send troops to Haiti. For now, Canada will be doing this.
I am announcing that Canada will also deploy Royal Canadian Navy vessels to conduct surveillance, gather intelligence, and maintain a maritime presence off the Haitian coast in the coming weeks.
These announcements could be the beginnings of a regional response, but in addition to Canadian money and ships, Trudeau called for free and fair Haitian elections, something Haiti's leader said he supports. David Thurton, CBC News, Nassau.
A devastating separation of people in India and Pakistan 75 years ago, and now a heartwarming reunification long after the partition. After the break, one Kamloops family story.
And Christmas was coming up, so our parents got us a table, and we just started playing basically every day, all day. We wanted to play in some kind of tournament, so for winter, this is like the only indoor sport we could find and that we actually had at home.
You're part of the first New Brunswick team to be competing in table tennis at the Canada Games in 20 years. What are you expecting?
We're not expected to win, but right now my goal is at least for the teams event, hopefully 5th or 4th place, but it's gonna be tough because everyone else is just way older than us. The 3 provinces that are expected to win are Quebec, British Columbia, and Ontario. So it's gonna be really tough.
What do people say to you when they find out you play competitive table tennis? For many people, it's just they have a table in their basement and they might not think of it as a sport.
They just have a crazy reaction because they didn't really know it was an actual sport that people actually played.
What's the secret to being good at table tennis?
Reflexes. Just the fastest sport out there, basically.
started playing table tennis because I thought it was an interesting game. There's no other game really like it. It's just different and it's agile. I like it.
I feel honored because it's not like not everyone gets the chance to play. Like, it's one of the biggest tournaments in Canada, right? So it's like a big deal.
I want to play professionally when I'm older, so I don't want to try to do other sports. I want to keep doing this one. A lot of people don't realize like how much training it takes and how much of a sport it could actually be. And that's why people don't really get too good at it. I realized that I had a chance to get like really good at it. And that's when I started playing competitively.
What does a practice look like?
It's like you practice a lot of the same shot, which is kind of, you just go back and forth until you make it. And once you make it, they show you things that you could do better on, things that you should like be getting used to more. And that's how like we get like better with our certain motions and stuff.
Can I challenge you to a point?
Yeah.
Let's do it. I think you can do well at the games. Much better than me.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
On March 8th, celebrate International Women's Day with Gloria Makarenko at the West Coast Leafs Equality Breakfast. Get your tickets at westcoastleaf.org. And dance away the winter blues with Corleone at Pop Capella 3 on March 3rd and 4th. Backed by a band of Vancouver's best, the Corleone Ensemble will take on your favorite hits. Tickets at corleone.org.
Well, it's a meeting 75 years in the making. A Kamloops family has been reunited with their loved ones after they were separated in the India-Pakistan partition in 1947. A trip to Pakistan this past November brought 3 generations of the family back together. Kamloops' Bill Sandhu is live with us now. Bill, there are so many stories of separation from the partition, but rarely do we get to hear about the reunification. Tell us about how your mom and her sister were torn apart in the first place.
So the family home was attacked and a number of the family members were murdered. And my mother was separated and lost from her family. And what happened then in this mass violence, as you know, 14 to 15 million people, largest mass migration in human history, 1 to 2 million dead. But anyways, Mom and Dad started a new life in Canada, and my mother buried her trauma in silence. She would not talk about it. And this is very common among survivors of mass violence and trauma, Holocaust survivors. And I have a younger sister, and as the years unfolded, we would pry and ask her, but she wouldn't tell us. She basically would say, I don't want you to bear the burden of my pain. I want you to look forward.
And
but
so
as she aged, yeah.
I was just going to say then, how did your family find out that there was family in Pakistan that was looking to connect with you?
So my mom was nearing the end of her life, quite aged. Her granddaughter, our daughter, persuaded her to talk. And so she was interviewed by Dr. Vinder Dabri. That was put on YouTube in 2018. 1 year later, we started to get messages. That video of my mom, her interview, was seen by hundreds of thousands around the globe. Wow. Word spread and made it to a family in Pakistan. We started to get messages, and basically, eventually, we put the piece together that there was a surviving sister, And in the last year of my mother's life, from 2019 to 2020, she was able to converse with her sister. They had video links. They put all the pieces together, shared stories. And my mom died on August 15, 2020, India's Independence Day, ironically. And then after that, basically it came down to, well, how do we move forward? Do we just let it go, or do we keep the connection? And I have, along with my family, continued to speak with my aunt. She's elderly, she's poor, she's widowed. And so we decided to go to Pakistan. And 7 of us traveled in November. We met with the family. We shared stories. We shared love. We wept. We laughed. Many people in the diaspora and in Pakistan and India know about this. People treated us with kindness. They were gracious. We visited my aunt's village. Many villagers came out to greet us. And we also visited my maternal grandmother's grave to pay our respect and honor her. It was a very powerful and emotional journey, 75 years after the partition. And so 72 years after the partition is when we discovered she had a surviving sister. These 2 countries, India and Pakistan, have been at war, hardened border. Lots of stories like this.
Absolutely, Bill. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us live tonight. We really appreciate it. It is an incredible story and great to see the pictures. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is it for CBC Vancouver News at 6 p.m. tonight. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Michelle Gassoub will be your host for the show. We hope you have a wonderful evening.